The invincible force of nature deployed as an answer against humanity's rampant use of modern technology. The colossal kaiju surfaced out of Tokyo Bay to restore natural balance to the ecosystem, defeating every other monster who dared cross his path. Godzilla has earned the title the King of the Monsters for a very good reason. Introduced to the world way back in 1954 in Toho's hit film titled Godzilla, the beast, mutated out of nuclear toxins dumped into the ocean, has proven himself time and again as a force not to be reckoned with, thanks to his massive strength and various abilities, like the iconic atomic breath. But did you know Godzilla's humongous size and some of his abilities are nature-defying themselves? The Monster King's physical capabilities and his mere existence go against the accepted laws of physics. In some of his incarnations, he is known to be carrying undiscovered chemical elements within him, suggesting Godzilla's body is a scientific miracle. Today we shine a light on some of these remarkable capabilities of the King of the Monsters spread across all of his many versions. Marvelous Videos brings to you the top 22 insane physiological details of Godzilla's body explored. So, fasten your seatbelts.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Atomic breath, a blast of heat laser shooting from his mouth that unleashes hell on Earth. Godzilla's most well-known power is his atomic breath, mostly seen as a blue beam of light firing with a massive exothermic blast at the end that sends a massive shockwave in all directions. Godzilla's atomic breath is his ace up the sleeve in battle, and usually his finishing move. The move is not only capable of turning cities into rubble upon impact, but also is a carrier of lethal amounts of nuclear toxins that can deplete all forms of land and life. In theory, it is said to be caused by huge amounts of controlled nuclear explosions inside Godzilla's body. The energy from which he then musters into a focused heat ray with destructive power and points it towards his enemies. In one brief instance featured in 1971's Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Godzilla uses his atomic breath to lift himself up off the ground and fly behind Hedorah to catch him. Regenerative Factor. Godzilla is discovered to carry organizer G1 in his cells, a substance that grants its host a highly regenerative nature. The substance, discovered by the scientist Yuji Shinoda in the 1999 film Godzilla 2000 Millennium, Organizer G1 possesses enhanced regenerative abilities that not only enable Godzilla to heal from his battle wounds, but also was the reason behind the mutation of some other kaiju-like life forms, namely Biollante, who was tribrid between human and rose DNA spliced with G1 cells, Space Godzilla, who was a result of Godzilla's DNA attaching itself to alien crystalline life form, and Orga, a giant UFO fused with G1 substance and mutated, who was also named after the organizer G1 cells. Amphibious nature. The massive size of the King of the Monsters makes a lot more sense considering his amphibious nature, an aquatic life form mutating by feeding on radioactive substances at the bottom of the ocean is a credible theory when talking about Godzilla's physical size, as sea animals are capable of growing to larger sizes than land animals, and the Monster King adds weight to this theory in style by being extremely agile and a terrific swimmer when it comes to battles in the ocean. He is known to use the network of oceanic currents to his armor's advantage in some of his versions and proves to be a deadly combatant underwater. Cruiser ships or carriers or even submarines, if you find yourself crossing Godzilla's path, better steer clear. Dorsal Plates. Godzilla's most remarkable visual feature that separates him from any other gigantic monster is an arrangement of dorsal plates protruding down his back. Be it any version of Godzilla, his look is never complete without his signature dorsal plates, and they stand as the most recognizable part of his silhouette too. But Godzilla's dorsal plates are more than just eye-catchers, as they have different abilities that help the King of the Monsters in his many endeavors. Usually seen as 3 rows of spikes leading from Godzilla's back to the tail, the jagged plates are the first signs of Godzilla that are seen as he pulls up to the shore. They work as armor for the king of the monsters and are also known to be energy conductors that glow up when the G-Man charges his atomic breath. Immense Strength. Not just his atomic fire-breathing capabilities, but when facing Godzilla in battle, his physical strength is something to be discussed at length. The king of the monsters is said to weigh over 90,000 tons and can crush any land beneath him just by stepping on it. Apart from just carrying himself around, which already requires immense amounts of strength, Godzilla is also able to throw punches and administer body attacks at his enemies, sometimes even charging towards them at full speed, which can only be thought of as a godly amount of power, incomprehensible to the human brain. Massive stature. Now, for a monster with enough strength to knock over a skyscraper, his size would also have to be close to a skyscraper, and the king of the monsters is definitely no exception. Throughout his many appearances, Godzilla has stood sometimes 50 meters tall and sometimes 120 meters tall, and in one case of Godzilla Earth, where Godzilla has evolved on Earth for over 20,000 years, he was seen standing at an astounding height of 300 meters tall. Defying all known laws of physics and biology, this colossal kaiju's size is awe-inspiring in nature and can only suggest that the elements making the composition of that body are unknown to humankind. Thick skin. One of the first words that come to mind when you think of Godzilla is invincible. The Monster King is a gigantic beast capable of destroying his surroundings just by moving around, but he is also known to be unkillable in most of his versions. Unaffected by any military arsenal known to human forces, Godzilla cannot be stopped or even be mildly bothered by bullets and missiles, thanks to his thick skin. His impenetrable skin provides Godzilla with a natural armor around him unmatched by human firepower. Its high resistance to any damage caused by the military's general artillery is the usual cause behind creative weapons designed by humans to destroy Godzilla. Nuclear pulse. In various versions, Godzilla is seen to have a symbiotic relationship with Mothra, meaning he can absorb Mothra's energy into his body after she dissipates and dies. As seen in the 2019 film by Legendary Pictures, Godzilla King of the Monsters, when King Ghidorah kills Mothra, Godzilla absorbs her energy, which makes the cracks in his skin glow orange, turning him into Burning Godzilla, generating immense heat that made his surroundings melt as he stepped around. This transformation granted him the ability to detonate a nuclear pulse in all directions that took the shape of Mothra's wings, strong enough to disintegrate King Ghidorah's entire body into 2 blasts. Radiation absorption. The king of the monsters is rarely seen eating any food, but is known to feed on nuclear energy for sustenance. After the Earth's atmospheric radiation levels dropped down entirely, Godzilla took shelter in Hollow Earth, feeding on the radiation from the Earth's core itself. In 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters, after his retreat from battle with King Ghidorah, he is seen to be recovering in a lair built by ancient humans for the Monster King, where Dr. Serizawa travels to denote a nuclear explosion from the blast of which Godzilla absorbs as much radiation as he can to reassemble for the fight. In an ability called the Radiation Absorption, Godzilla is strengthened by nuclear blasts that occur near him, causing rapid regeneration of his energy and healing the damage in the process. Longevity. With the physics and biology of Godzilla not obeying the natural laws known and practiced by humans, in tandem with his ability to regenerate his cells, Godzilla is often depicted to be immortal. Besides invincible, the actual lifespan of Godzilla is unknown to humans and for the most part incomprehensible. He is known to be an ancient being living for thousands of years before humans arrived in some versions, and a being that lived on Earth for thousands of years after the humans left the planet in some versions. In the anime trilogy produced by Netflix, Godzilla's existence for over 20,000 years on Earth is said to have evolved the chemistry of the Earth's atmosphere, making it inhabitable for humans when they return, suggesting that his life on the planet might never end. Seismic footsteps. The submarines and the sea vessels are the first to know when an attack from Godzilla approaches as the Monster King surfaces from the ocean. But the minute he makes landfall, the entirety of Tokyo gets to know who is coming thanks to his seismic footsteps. The unbelievable size of Godzilla is capable of crushing any kind of terrain under the massive weight of his feet, leaving a trail of destruction behind him as he moves. Seen in almost all of his incarnations, his footsteps cause the ground below to shake, sending massive tremors everywhere, indicating the arrival of Gojira. The sheer sound from his walking causes the citizens to panic as the ground erupts open under every one of his steps, and sometimes he does the necessary job of intimidating his enemies who need to be put in line. Tail as a weapon. Although Godzilla's atomic breath is his most recognizable and fan-favorite capability, an undeniable close second would be his iconic tail whip, a maneuver in which Godzilla calculates the approach of a charging enemy and turns around in a swift motion, swinging his massive tail at the target, in a whiplash action using their own velocity against him. As seen in a 2014 film by Legendary Pictures titled Godzilla, the Monster King administers this move as a finisher against the male Muto, sending the flying monster crashing into a skyscraper and getting impaled onto its protruding beams. First seen in the 1965 Toho film Invasion of Astro Monster, Godzilla's tail whip has evolved over the years and has made it into many of his versions, and on one very popular occasion, in 1973's Godzilla vs. Megalon, the King of the Monsters is seen using the strength of his tail to slide across land and air kick his enemy, a move now known as the famous tail slide. Sharp teeth and claws. Godzilla proves to be a lethal opponent in close-quarters combat due to the immense strength of his arms and jaw, used in tandem with the sharpness of his claws and teeth respectively. Godzilla's bite cuts deep into enemy skin after making them bleed, and his neck's strength enables his grip to hold and whip his enemies across blocks of cities, a move that weighs itself heavy on the mighty Kong, dislocating his shoulder on impact. Godzilla also swings the male Muto into the sky using his jaw strength and rips off one of King Ghidorah's heads in the underwater battle. He frequently uses his teeth and claws to grapple with his enemies, tearing deep into the otherwise impervious skin of his enemies, and further bolstering his close-quarter combat skills. Incredible stamina. It's no wonder at this point that the King of the Monsters has an unparalleled strength that lets him use his gigantic body to his advantage in battles, but it also grants him incredible stamina that lets him keep going relentlessly. Enemy after enemy, as seen in the MonsterVerse films produced by Legendary Pictures, Godzilla engages in fight sequences for an extended period of time before showing any signs of fatigue. When he shows up in San Francisco, after being dormant for more than 50 years, he fights two newly hatched Mutos without breaking a sweat. More so, he goes through 3 tiresome rounds with the mighty Kong after defeating him at the Battle of Hong Kong, and then goes through 2 additional rounds with a Mechagodzilla unleashed by Apex Cybernetics. The Monster King still manages to muster the energy to charge Kong's axe with his atomic breath, which he ultimately uses to mutilate Mechagodzilla. Enhanced senses. The MonsterVerse, Godzilla can view and use the oceans of the world as an extension of himself, as depicted in the graphic novel Godzilla Dominion. The entire planet is his territory, and he knows the depths and hollows of the earth very closely due to the oceans, which means he can sense any disturbances or imbalances immediately and react accordingly. This is seen when Godzilla is able to sense the awakening of any other kaiju as soon as it happens and shows up with a challenge. Not just the awakening of a dormant kaiju, he also senses when Apex Cybernetics uses King Ghidorah's skull to activate the Mechagodzilla, subsequently turning the entire facility to dust. Thermal vision. Post Mothra's sacrifice in Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla realizes his ability to sense disturbances from the network of currents in the ocean that now extends to the entire planet. Fusing with Mothra's dissipated energy also resulted in some new heightened senses for our beloved Monster King, one of which is thermal vision. While returning to Hollow Earth once Godzilla gets attacked by Tiamat, who blinds the Monster King by expelling acidic breath into the water. Godzilla's heightened senses come to his aid, and he uses his thermal vision to track the Tiamat swimming up behind him. Pressure resistance. The Monster King uses the network of tunnels and ocean currents to move quickly from one point to the other across the globe. His thick skin provides him with enough tensile strength not just to sustain the impact of the water's surface upon plunging his whole massive weight into it, but also to survive the pull of the fierce currents of the ocean's depths. Don't forget that Godzilla is also capable of withstanding the gravitational pull of the wormholes he has to use to travel in and out of the hollow earth. Adaptive evolution. The Monster King is shown to be able to evolve in many different ways across his various appearances, an evolution process centered around different factors. The most interesting form of these evolution processes was portrayed in the hit film of 2016 by Toho company Shin Godzilla. In this incarnation of Godzilla, he was seen mutating and evolving rather rapidly, and always as a response to threat or attack. The monster in the film takes 4 distinct forms and is stopped at the nick of time by humans just as he's about to evolve into his 5th form. Every new form of the monster evolves as a response to the conditions it endures in the previous form and mutates rapidly out of sheer necessity. Magnetic properties. In a popular film from the franchise released in 1974 titled Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, the king of the monsters gets struck by lightning repeatedly, but manages to harness its electrical power to produce a magnetic force field. He uses his newfound abilities in his battle against Mechagodzilla alongside King Caesar. Mecha G beats down on the Monster King and attempts to fly away when he gets back up on his feet to deploy a magnetic force field that pulls electrical towers towards him and then pulls Mechagodzilla out of the sky. He then uses his magnetic properties to pin down the kaiju robot to the ground and allow King Caesar to ram into the Silver Monster King repeatedly, ultimately defeating it. Energy absorption and projection. Being a colossal kaiju filled with nuclear energy and radioactivity, the king of the monsters is also capable of absorbing different kinds of energy signatures through his body and utilizing it in an array of different energy-based attacks and pulses, mainly brought to life throughout his appearances in the Heisei era of Godzilla films. His atomic breath being the standard attack against enemies, Godzilla additionally shoots a spiral heat ray, a stronger version of his atomic breath wrapped in an electrical spiral. He absorbs the energy given to him by the sacrifice of Mothra or Rodan, which turns him into Burning Godzilla, which then makes him shoot much stronger versions of the heat rays and nuclear pulses shown differently in various films. Sonar communication. As a part of Godzilla's symbiotic relationship with Mothra, he possesses the ability to communicate with Mothra via sonar. Mothra's wings bear a pattern mimicking Godzilla's eyes as a warning signal, and the two can communicate over great distances, as seen in the 2019 film Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Mothra uses this ability to lead Monarch to the location of Godzilla's lair after the Monster King recedes from his tiring battle with King Ghidorah, subsequently helping the humans in their quest to revive the fallen King of the Monsters. Camouflage. Not a very common ability throughout his appearances, but the Monster King did briefly have the ability to camouflage himself out of sight. In the 1998 film made by TriStar Pictures titled Godzilla, in his first ever American incarnation, the King of the Monsters comes ashore on Manhattan Island to terrorize New York City, although not very specifically focused on the point. The film briefly mentions the giant lizard's ability to slip out of sight, as his gray body was hard to track against the gray of the concrete jungle. He also had the ability to reduce his heat signatures, which made him impossible to track in the Big Apple. Marvelous verdict. Whether it is blasting his enemies off with a focused beam or healing himself with a much-needed sleep, fans love watching their beloved Monster King and all of his incarnations bring any of all his abilities to life across different media, and it is always fun exploring these abilities by gathering evidence from the source material. After all, these abilities and scientific details are what sets the King of the Monsters ahead and apart, and we couldn't agree more. With more coverage to bring to you whenever Godzilla dons new abilities, we'll be right here at Marvel's Videos, ready with another video. Until then, stay tuned for more Gojira Mania.
If you enjoyed this video, click on the like button and comment below about which other movie reviews you would want to watch. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.